Okay, welcome to the Township Office of Adelaide Metcalfe. It's Monday, September the 15th at 7 p.m. and it looks like all our councilors, everybody's here tonight. And we don't have anybody joining us online, I don't believe. Okay, is there any declaration of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to the next item, the agenda. Are there any additions to the agenda for this evening? If not, where are we here? Okay, then we have a recommendation that the agenda for September the 15th meeting of council be approved. Moved by Councillor McKinnon, seconded by Councillor Kingma. All in favor? And that's carried. All right, you've had time to read the minutes of the previous meetings. Are there any errors and omissions? Seeing none, then we have a recommendation that the minutes of the Adelaide Metcalfe meeting of council held on August 11th, 2025 be adopted as printed. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Campbell, seconded by Councillor Brody. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, next up is our Committee of Adjustment. Public meeting with that. The purpose of the upcoming Committee of Adjustment and public meeting is to provide council, the Committee of Adjustment, and the general public an opportunity to hear from all interested parties regarding the applications being discussed this evening. The public is advised that comments expressed and written material presented are a matter of public record available for full disclosure. In respect to the Committee of Adjustment application, only the applicant or a public body can appeal a Committee of Adjustment decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal. This must be filed within 20 days from the date of decision. In respect to the public meeting application, if a person or public body does not speak to the application at the public meeting or make written submissions to the township, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the council decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal or be added as a party to an appeal of the decision to the tribunal. If you wish to be notified of the decision in writing, please submit a written request to the clerk. So could I have a motion to go into the Committee of Adjustment at 7:03 p.m. Moved by Councillor Kingma, second by Councillor Brody. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, we'll turn this portion of the meeting over to our planner, Ashley Sawyer. It's regarding application for consent B03-2023, the owner estate of Marjorie Matthews, care of Jeff Matthews Estate Trustee, and the agent Vera Doctor from Cohen Hiley Lawyers. And the property in discussion is 1352 Napperton Drive. So over to you, Ashley.
Thank you, Chair Clark. So as noted, these subject lands have a municipal address of 1352 Napperton Drive, which is also known as County Road number 39. The lands are located on the north side of Napperton Drive, just west of Kerwood Road, and Napperton Drive is classified as a Middlesex County collector road. The lands currently contain one single detached residential dwelling, one barn, a horse pasture area, agricultural lands and crop production, an open municipal drain, and mixed vegetation. The lands are approximately 54 acres in size. The lands are located in what is considered a prime agricultural area and are designated as an agricultural area in both the county and township official plans. The lands are zoned as general agriculture and environmental protection zone within the township's zoning bylaw. And I would just note that that EP zone is predominantly for the lands where the municipal drain is located and a buffer around the municipal drain as well. So the purpose and effect of the application is to sever approximately 46 acres of farmland and merge it with the abutting farm to the east. So on the map on the screen there, that's just the red highlighted area, and it's going to merge with the green highlighted area. Doing this would result in the abutting parcel becoming approximately 150 acres in size and would lead to a surplus farm dwelling severance lot that is approximately 7 acres in size, which on the map there, that's just the yellow square. The existing single detached dwelling, barn, and horse pasture are proposed to remain with that surplus farm dwelling lot. So this particular application has some history with it, so I will summarize it at a high level for context. In April 2023, the application was originally brought before this committee to sever an 11.4 acre parcel as a surplus farm dwelling severance. The intent was to divide the subject lands along the existing municipal drain. The dwelling, horse barn, and pasture were proposed to stay with the rural residential lot, and then that rear agricultural farm parcel was proposed to be landlocked. Staff are of the opinion that the proposal did not meet the applicable policy criteria for a surplus farm dwelling severance and did recommend denial. The committee ultimately deferred that application for revisions to be made. In August 2023, the application was brought back before the committee as a lot adjustment rather than a surplus farm dwelling severance. Ultimately, the intent remained the same as the original application that was brought forward in April. However, the owner did propose to merge the landlocked agricultural parcel with the abutting farm to the east. At the request of the agent at that meeting, the application was deferred to allow for it to come back and be reconsidered as a surplus farm dwelling severance. Following the August 2023 meeting, the township awaited the revised submission, which is now the subject of this meeting today. So from a policy perspective, I would just note that all policies are meant to be read in their entirety, and I've summarized them in my report thoroughly, but I won't reiterate them for word this evening. But generally speaking, the Planning Act requires that decisions made by planning authorities shall be consistent with the provincial planning statement, which is otherwise known as the PPS. Planning authorities are required to maintain and enhance a geographically continuous agricultural land base. Lot creation in prime agricultural areas is discouraged and may only be permitted for very limited situations, such as one surplus farm dwelling resident severance per consolidation. The PPS, the Middlesex County Official Plan, and the Adelaide Metcalfe Official Plan emphasize that the new lot must be kept to the minimum size needed to accommodate the residential use and appropriate sewage and water services. So the updated 2024 PPS, which I've noted in my report, is what replaced the 2020 provincial policy statement, did arguably tighten that policy framework. So now only one new residential lot per farm consolidation is permitted. In staff's opinion, this revision makes it clear that the policy intends to limit residential lot creation in prime agricultural areas and to ensure that surplus farm dwelling severances remain an exception rather than a means of fragmenting farmland. Lot adjustments may be permitted for legal or technical reasons, which are defined as a severance for the purpose of an easement, a correction of deed, a quitclaim, and a minor boundary adjustment. Ultimately, the intent with a lot adjustment is not to create a new lot. So consents for new farm lots are discouraged where the result is the creation of a non-viable farm lot, which in the county's agricultural parcel size analysis study indicates that that's generally lots that are 40 hectares or 100 acres or less in size. Farm lot sizes shall be sufficiently large to create continuous farming blocks, and an emphasis is based on maintaining flexibility to adapt for future agricultural changes. The Adelaide Metcalfe Official Plan states that surplus farm dwelling severances are permitted provided the proposed lot is the minimum size needed to accommodate the residential use and appropriate sewage and water services, that the loss of agricultural land is avoided wherever possible, that farm buildings deemed surplus to the needs of the farm or incompatible with the proposed surplus dwelling lot, if retained with the farm, are required to be demolished or removed. Farm buildings shall not be included with the proposed surplus dwelling lot unless deemed structurally sound and in good condition by the chief building official, and provided these structures don't exceed what you permit for in your zoning bylaw. Additionally, the raising of livestock shall be prohibited on a surplus dwelling lot. In terms of comments, no formal comments were submitted by the members of the public prior to the submission of my report. County Emergency Services did recommend a standard 911 addressing condition if the application's approved, as did the county engineer for a standard road dedication condition. Hydro One noted no comments or concerns, and the St. Clair Region Conservation Authority noted no concerns as proposed, so long as the severed farm parcel is merged with the abutting parcel to the east, and emphasized that their comments from 2023 still apply. A permit from the Conservation Authority would be required prior to any development taking place in the regulated area, and development for a conservation authority is a little bit different than what we would classify as development sometimes as the average person. But that generally means any fill coming into the site, any site grading, drainage alteration, and then, of course, constructing any buildings. In staff's opinion, the proposal fails to satisfy several key policy requirements, which are ultimately in place to limit the fragmentation of farmland and to ensure surplus farm dwelling severances are kept to the minimum size needed to accommodate that residential use and the associated water and sanitary services. As noted, the surplus farm dwelling lot is approximately 7 acres in size, and it could reasonably be reduced for the residential use and the servicing. A rough estimate shows that the lot could be reduced to about the 1.5 acre mark if the barn's left with the farmland, If the barn were to stay with the residential lot and is formally converted to an accessory structure, you could still get the lot size down to around 2.2 acres. The application also proposes to maintain an existing agricultural use on the surplus dwelling lot, being the horse barn and the pasture area, which clearly contradicts the policy direction. It's crucial to note that the definition of an agricultural use is not just cash cropping, but it also includes the raising of livestock such as a horse barn and pasture area. So in staff's opinion, the application could arguably be characterized as an undersized farm split, as opposed to a true surplus farm dwelling severance, just because that agricultural use is proposed to be maintained on that 7 acres. Additionally, 7 acres extends beyond what is reasonably needed for a dwelling and servicing. So for the reasons I've mentioned and outlined in greater detail in my report, staff are unable to recommend the application be approved as proposed, and we are of the opinion that the application is not consistent with the provincial planning statement, does not conform to the county's official plan, does not conform to the Adelaide Metcalfe official plan, and does not represent sound land use planning. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. And now if Vera and Jeff want to come up to the microphone here and speak to the application.
Thank you. So we did want to start off by clearing up just a couple of points in the report and within the agenda that were inconsistent with our application. So the agenda, page 10 and page 12, the planning evaluation report erroneously mentioned that it was the North Middlesex official plan when it should be the township of Adelaide Metcalfe. And the severed parcel stated that it would have a frontage on Napperton, and that is not the intent. There would be no frontage on Napperton for the severed parcel, which is the farmland in the back that would be landlocked. The retained parcel frontage would actually be about 168.46 meters, which is slightly larger than what is stated on there because, again, there is no frontage for the farmland. And page 11 refers to the retained parcel being 11.4 acres in size, which appears to be what was in the original application. Our application is not for that size. It is for 6.89 acres for the retained parcel, although taking into consideration the 15 meters that would be potentially for the road allocation, as well as the hydro easement that is substantially along the front and fairly large, we'd actually be looking at close to about 6 acres, 5.85 acres to be exact. Getting to the actual application, we wanted to point out that the official plan provides some permissive language. There are no hard limits within the plan. It doesn't state that a lot size has to be a specific size. And so it's not a strict prohibition on the sizing, although we understand that there is a preference for size. So we believe that it's a framework that involves the careful consideration of the application to determine if it makes common sense given the actual parcel we're looking at. And in this case, we are looking at taking into consideration the actual application in light of the unique nature of this lot. So we understand that the planning report states that it could be used for crop farming or for farming purposes, but we want to point out that historically it has not. It has, in fact, not been used for any crop production since the 1980s. So the chances of it being utilized for agriculture purchases is very, very slim to none. There are also limited buyers for the parcel given the location of where it's severed. And given that, it's difficult for that area to be accessed. And given that, it would be hard for it to be utilized for farm purposes, at least in a viable, cost-efficient manner. And the OP plan talks about it being efficient, and it talks about it viewing in the area of farm consolidation for the purposes of allowing a viable farming operations to continue. And that's what we're looking here. part of the, sorry, and I did want to point out specifically section 2.1 of the township's official plan, which specifically says it encourages efforts to consolidate smaller farm units into largeable, more viable farm units. Again, that is the intent here. It is to allow the adjoining farm owner to consolidate this into a larger parcel. So again, consistent with the consolidation and removing fragmentation. It's going to permit the adjoining farm owner to consolidate this into a much larger parcel. And then we also wanted to point out that it looks like having a farmer pay for acreage that it absolutely will not utilize is not viable. It does not support the idea in the official plan to consolidate for viable farming operations. So what we are trying to do here with our application is to present it in a manner that does allow the adjoining farm owner to purchase the property, to consolidate it into that larger framework, and to viably use it within his larger farming operations. In addition, we wanted to point out that the house was built in 1964. The property has 2 septic systems and a well. It is unclear right now where that septic bed lies in relation to the property boundaries. So it makes it difficult to constrain the size as proposed along the sides, because again, we do not know where that septic bed is within that second septic system. And finally, we wanted to point out that the township official plan talks about it as a goal. This is in section 1.3A, that we want to guide the future land use decisions in the township in a manner that recognizes the rural nature of the municipality and the strong cultural and economic predominance of agricultural community, and provide for the needs of existing and future residents. And we have a family here, the Matthews family, that has historical ties to the township and who wish to maintain those ties through the ownership of the farmhouse. This will provide ongoing economic benefits to the community and thus support that objective of having strong community. Thank you.
Okay, Jeff, is there anything you want to add at this time? No, okay. Council, what type of questions do you have, if any? Betty Ann, Councillor McKinnon?
Through you, Mayor Sue, to I'm sorry, Vera, is it? Vera, I can't support this application the way it's presented to us. I think that I could support it if the barn didn't house livestock. We've had a few applications come before us, and that was one of the stipulations that we made with them, that they couldn't have livestock in it. I'm not even opposed to the larger size of the 5 acres, because if in the future you wanted to put the heating and cooling running tiles, you've got the extra room there to do that. So basically, that's my concern.
Councillor Brody?
Through Sue to Matthews. The only concern, it's not a concern, but the neighboring property is going to have to farm that triangle now that, like in the original application, that wasn't on there, and the county was probably going to say no way because it's too big. Well, now the neighboring property will have to farm a triangle piece there, and what you're asking for is still too big in the eyes of the county. That's my only holdup with this. To the planner, like, this will go through no problem if it was 2 acres or 2.5 acres. It's the 6-7 acres is the big holdup here. It's tough. I get this one. I know there's a ditch behind it. I know the property is a beautiful property, but the rules that we have in front of us just state that it's not possible. That's That's a problem.
Counselor Kingma?
Thank you. Through the chair to the delegation, what is your definition of a minimum required size to accommodate services?
So within the official plan, it doesn't state that, right? It says it's a minimum size to accommodate water and sewer services. And that's what my point is. At this point in time, we don't know where that septic bed is. So the minimum size is difficult to determine right now within the, to give away any parts along the side when we don't know where that septic bed is for that one septic system. It's difficult to determine. But again, the official plan doesn't have a minimum size specifically stated. And I understand that there is a preference within most municipalities as to that size, but our position is that this is the minimum size meant to accommodate that. And we have no issues removing or making a condition that there would be no horses stored within the farms. That would not be an issue for us to have as a condition within the application.
Counselor Brody?
Just a question. I'm just wondering why that you haven't figured out where the septic is, because this has been since like 2 years now. Right?
There's two septics on there. So I know where the one when the addition was put on in the 80s, we know exactly where it is. It goes right up to the barn.
Okay.
The one from 64, we have no records on it. So it does go out into that field. We didn't go lay it out because we were hoping to have that all in there, but it's out in that to the west of the house somewhere. I know exactly where the septic tank is, but not the actual tile bed field. It's in that, it tapers off and kind of goes in the flat there somewhere.
Okay.
Counselor Kingma?
Can I get a reaction from the delegation if we were to defer this and you come back with precise measurements? Can we see if we can get this property size down a notch and make it palatable for the county to accept?
When we looked at the resizing of this and the line that goes across east-west, we looked at where the barn was. All the major doors are in the back of the barn. So we kind of put that line across the back. So it made the back of the barn usable. Because if you bring that up too far, you can't, swing in and back into the back of the barn. So that was one of the driving factors. So we brought that line from our first two applications down as far as we could, southerly, and drew a line across that. And that's kind of really whether it's 4 or 5 feet either way, it's not material. I don't think so. That's taking it straight across, and then in discussions with the purchaser of this land who's behind me. It just didn't seem viable to work that piece, so we just kind of drew the straight line right across the other fence lines. So we've determined it's kind of like a balance of using that barn, being able to use that barn in the future without major modifications to the back. Putting new doors in it is one example.
Counselor Campbell?
So I'm curious with the fact that the barn is causing a problem and the septic tank in both ways is causing a problem. Is there a way to pick a preference as to which one you'd like to have rather than all of it? Because I'd share the concerns here that if the rules state that it is too big, and I do give you credit in terms of merging the two farms together, does look like the before me being here, but is a much improved option there, and looks good that way. But is there anywhere in there that which one is your least favorite piece to peel off to make it closer to what the county would accept?
I'm not sure I'm prepared tonight to get a firm number. I mean, I think, we've done a lot of work on this to try and get it down to the minimum. We think, based on others around, we think it is a proper size for what we have with the barn. But we certainly could go back and take a think and review that.
Counselor Brody.
I would just think the county is really gonna wanna see that yellow line moved along the grass, right? And that would probably get it to 2 to 3 acres, and I would imagine it would go through no problem. It's just, it's a bigger acreage to ask for what the rules state.
Ashley, go ahead.
Yes, thank you through Chair Clark. So yeah, my biggest concern is ultimately the lot size and how it meets the criteria for being the minimum for a residential use and the services that are provided. 7 acres is generally much larger than I've seen in my experience for what you need for well and septic. But then the other component too is the official plan is very specific in that an agricultural use should not be maintained or cannot be maintained on that residential parcel. So those are the two big cruxes of my kind of thought process, but I'm certainly happy to work with the applicant and make some revisions.
Counselor Brody.
I would propose this gets deferred again, and maybe we can work on it to get it done and get it closer. That'd be my recommendation today. I wouldn't want to say I just want to deny it. I would see if we can we still work on it to try to get an answer that'll work here.
I'm seeing nods, so
Yeah,
Counselor Campbell?
it appears close would be, I'd agree with Counselor Brody in terms of like, it appears close. It just moving that yellow line. I would guess would please many more people in the room.
Okay, so not to put words in anybody, somebody want to make a motion here? Counselor Brody?
Yeah, I'll make the motion that we defer this, and then they can work with the planner and try to get this hopefully we can get this done.
Okay. Seconded by Counselor Kingma. All in favor? And that's carried. I apologize. I forgot to ask anyone in the public wanted to speak, but I didn't see anyone jumping up and down and screaming, so I think we're okay. Hey, could I have a motion to adjourn the Committee of Adjustment at 7:28 PM? Moved by Counselor McKinnon, second by Counselor Campbell, all in favor, and that's carried. Okay, next up, we have a recommendation that council convene into the public meeting at 7:28. Moved by Counselor Kingma, second by Counselor Brody, all in favor, and that's carried. Okay, this part of the meeting is to look at the application for zoning bylaw amendment, a temporary use Z09-2025. The owner applicant Manny, help me out, Manny, but how do you pronounce your last name? Okay, there we go. Oh, I'm looking at your middle name, maybe. Sorry about that. Okay, we'll strike that one off. Okay, I knew your last name. I was just stuck on the second one. Okay, and the property in discussions 29064 Hansford Road. And once again, I'll turn this over to the planner, Ashley Sawyer.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. So as noted, the address of the property is 29064 Hansford Road, and it's just located at the southeast intersection of Hansford Road and Egremont Drive, which I would note in my report, I had Egremont Drive labeled as County Road 39, and it is actually County Road number 22. So my apologies for the typo. The lands are approximately 0.92 acres in size, and surrounding uses are predominantly agricultural in nature. I would just note this specific property does have a rural residential zoning on it, and there's currently one single detached dwelling on the property, and the lands are serviced by a privately owned well and septic system. There is also an existing driveway to Hansford Road, and no new driveway is proposed. So the purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is to implement what we call a temporary use permission on the subject lands to permit for the establishment of one detached additional residential unit, which is approximately 1,184 square feet in size. The Planning Act authorizes the township to pass a temporary use bylaw for a maximum period of 3 years, in which further extensions can be granted by council. As council's aware, at the end of 2024, the province did replace the provincial policy statement with an entirely new policy document called the Provincial Planning Statement, with the emphasis remaining on protecting prime agricultural areas, and that was arguably strengthened. It did allow for municipalities to now consider permitting for these detached ARUs in prime agricultural areas, provided they comply with certain criteria. So the big ones that the province set out are minimum distance separation setbacks are met, the units compatible with and would not hinder surrounding agricultural operations, there's appropriate sewage and water services, they're of limited scale, and they are located within, attached, or in close proximity to the principal dwelling. So previously, these types of units were mandated by the province to be permitted in fully serviced urban settlement areas. However, they weren't contemplated on a permanent basis in the prime agricultural area. And the key difference there is that they're not permitted as of right in the prime agricultural area, which is why we have to do the temporary use bylaw in the interim. I would just note there's a provision in the provincial planning statement that requires a planning authority to decide on a planning matter before their official plan is updated, that they have to maintain consistency with their provincial planning statement. And so as this council is aware, the county official plan and the Adelaide Metcalfe official plans are both in the process of being updated to reflect these new policies, but the decision you make must still be consistent with the provincial planning statement. So when evaluating the proposal strictly from the lens of what the provincial planning statement requires, staff are of the opinion that the criteria set by the province is met. Once the county and township policy documents are updated, the temporary ARU will either need to be converted to a permanent ARU that complies with whatever finalized policy parameters that county council and township council adopt, or they'll need to obtain a renewal for the temporary use permission. Worst case scenario, removal would be required, but I'm of the opinion that we would be working with people, especially in this situation where it aligns with what the province has submitted. So that all being said, the application was circulated in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, and no concerns have been noted by members of the public or by the county engineer. Public Works Manager did just note that they wouldn't permit for a second driveway for the ARU, which, as I've noted, is not promoted anyways. And then the building department noted, of course, that building permit and septic permit would be required. So my recommendation is that the report be received for information and that the bylaw be passed and read a first, second, and third time this evening. And this would be accompanied with a temporary use agreement and a security deposit of $10,000 that would be submitted either once the structure is converted to a permanent structure or going forward. That's probably going to be the case. So yeah, I'm here if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you, Ashley. Are there any questions? Manny, did you want to speak to the application at all, or you're good? Okay, all righty. If nobody has any questions or comments, then we have a recommendation that the application for zoning bylaw amendment Z09-2025 be approved and that the implementing bylaw be read a first, second, and third final time, and further that the property owners enter into a temporary use agreement with the township and post the required $10,000 security deposit for the reasons listed in Ashley's report. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Counselor Brody, seconded by Counselor Campbell. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, I need a motion to adjourn the public meeting at 7:34 PM. Moved by Counselor Brody, seconded by Counselor McKinnon. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay. All right, next up, we have some guests here this evening that are, I don't know, I'm not sure what they're really going to do. They're going to let us know though. So from Middlesex County, local council for 2025, we have a warden, Brian Ropp, and Middlesex County's newly anointed CAO, Paul Shipway. So come on up to the microphone, guys, and tell us what you'd like to tell us.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and staff. Thank you for this opportunity to come and meet with you here tonight. I know we always call it the Dog and Pony Show, correct? But I think the first
Which one are
thing-
you?
Yeah, I won't say. First thing is, I don't know if everybody knows, our new CAO knows Paul Shipway. I'm not sure if you're familiar with everyone, but I want to welcome him to Middlesex County. And we're looking forward to the future and going ahead. So at this time, I'll turn it over to our CAO to start to lead the conversation.
Thank you very much for having us here this evening, and thank you for the laid back atmosphere. It's nice to come out to council and be able to joke around a bit. So it's a big privilege for Brian and I to get to go on the road show and talk about what county council's been up to and sort of some of the vision looking forward. So we appreciate the opportunity, and at the end, obviously, we look forward to some questions or takeaways. So moving forward, I think one of the things that we want to acknowledge is the past little bit here. There's been lots of change at the county. I'm going to skip over the overview and go right into the next one after that. We've had a lot of organizational change at the county. First time we have a new CAO in a long time, and then also recently we did a reorganization, formerly Community Services, Financial Services, and we've divided that into two service area portfolios. Number one, we're recruiting, and hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we go through our interview process for Director of Finance. So we're looking at that service area as a standalone. And we've also put Human Services, which was formerly Social Services, and is part of our service manager role that we've been delegated from the City of London as a standalone division as well. And that will allow us to just have core focus on those two service areas. It was a very large portfolio for any one person to manage. And really the whole process and mindset we're trying to instill in everything we do from an administrative perspective is ask, how can we do this better today than we did it yesterday? And from an administrative perspective, we're doing that by looking internally at enhancing our processes, and we're looking externally to our colleagues like Mr. Calvert and asking, how can we work more efficiently with the local municipalities within Middlesex County? When we're all functioning on the same team, we'll deliver better outcomes for council and our communities, which is really what we're all here for. So we didn't want to sleep on that. We've went through some significant organizational changes from an administrative perspective. I think next is the strategic plan. So from a representative perspective, council has updated the strategic plan. I won't go in super detail about it, but I'll just say the four key priorities are economic development, focusing on diversification of the tax base. We're very heavy on residential assessment, and I know from watching your agendas, Adelaide Metcalfe is acutely aware of that as well with some of the work you've been doing. So we're reassessing how we deliver economic development. We think that report will be on the next agenda for county council consideration. Collaboration and partnerships, again, ties into the administrative perspective of how can we work better with really everyone in the ecosystem that we work with, all the interested parties. Sustainable infrastructure development. One of the things that has been a hallmark for Middlesex County is having highly regarded linear infrastructure, really roads and bridges, good bridge and culvert index, high pavement condition index. So continue that and ensure both our infrastructure and the financial model supporting those is sustainable and allows us to focus on all priorities. And then adaptability and agility. As everyone knows, the world we operate in continues to change. The pace of planning legislation change has been immense over the last little while. So we want to ensure our systems and our organization can adapt to that and seize opportunities when they present themselves. One of the tangible items we're really proud of that County Council just approved is the Community Improvement Plan Support Program. So this focuses on economic development. Each local municipality, for the most part, has a community improvement plan, and those are catered to each individual municipality. So instead of the county trying to identify how we can amalgamate all those items into one policy, what County Council has done is enhance a previous program that really focused on facade improvements and diversify that to have a few tranches of funding, and that is housing, industrial development, and then facade improvement. So that will allow local municipalities to apply to the county to get rebates or refunds to the local municipality for CIP incentives you've paid out to local applicants. So we don't have the ability to pay out to the applicants, we'll pay back to you. And the goal with that program is to enhance the reach of your funding programs and allow each municipality to drive the type of development they like. So I know Mayor Clark, County Councillor Clark at the Horseshoe at the county noted we may have proposed too low of funding within that envelope. So we'll see what happens at the 2026 budget process. But the policy's been approved. It'll take force and effect on January 1st, 2026. And we're excited to see the funding envelope that gets put forward for that. But we're excited as a tangible outcome to have that program in place now. Next, we have planning and development. So obviously in Middlesex County, we have very close relationship with the planning delivery model. And right now we're going through official plan amendment number 4. It's been it's been submitted to the province in accordance with the act, and the Planning Advisory Committee sort of went through the internal process, and now planning is getting ready for the comprehensive external engagement and statutory process on that. I know we're starting to get feedback from some of the local municipalities, so we're looking forward to that. And assuming all goes well, hopefully County Council will be able to consider the adoption of that amendment before year end. And if it doesn't get appealed, well, we'll see what happens. But we're also working through the appeals of those existing policies as well. But we're proud of the planning model we have and the great work our planners do both at the county and local level. Next up, just touching on strategic plans, the library's strategic plan also got updated, and it's just focused on creating exceptional experiences, expanding reach, and supporting lifelong learning. I know in speaking with Southwest Middlesex, they were curious more about the model that Adelaide Metcalfe has put in place with the book machine, but we'll also continue to look to expand our reach and service delivery across the county as it pertains to early on within those centers as well. Next up, asset management plan. I won't dwell on this too long, but just tying back to our previous comments, County Council and staff are proud of the linear infrastructure. We still need to do a couple tweaks to get to full funding, but we do feel like we're fairly close, and that'll be presented this fall and incorporated into the budget. But County Council will have some options in regards to service levels and life cycle costings to close that infrastructure gap. And then I think it's an appropriate time also to talk about transportation services or roads is likely one of the most common interactions between the county and local municipalities. And we're starting the process of going through and updating all those policies. At the most recent county council meeting, community safety zones was presented. And there's a lot of old policies and practices that could use a bit of an update that will give transparency to all involved and provide a better ability to plan and interact. So we're going through that process, and we're looking forward to some holistic engagement with the local municipalities when we go through that process. But we got the first one through, and we'll get the rest through as well. So we're excited about that. Next up, no one gets as excited about forestry as me, but I really do enjoy the forestry. It was well received in Southwest Middlesex. The county has a ton of county forests, and it's sort of a unique thing for a Southwestern Ontario municipality. And we're adding a section into our asset management plan specifically about this, because the woodlands really do provide a lot of economic and sort of sustainability benefits. So it's an angle we can play as we pursue grants and whatnot. And then also the county forests are designed to be a revenue generator. So we're updating our 20-year forest asset management plan and really trying to hone in on the selective harvesting of those timbers. So we're excited about that update, and I just wanted to point it out because I think Mark and our forestry team do a great job. We had the privilege of getting a contract position this year where they went out and they've used a GIS program to identify exactly like the type of trees and forest cover and health. And I think it's going to provide some value on a go-forward basis. And I was excited about it, so we threw it in the presentation. Next up, obviously, I think everyone's aware that one of the larger projects the county has undertaken is construction of a new governance and administration building. So that has started. Foundations are in the ground. There is a website that's been put up, or a web page, sorry, that's been put up on the county website showing progress on it. And we'll be bringing forward, I don't want to give a time frame, but frequent updates on the Governance Administration Center about how it's being developed, how it's tracking to budget, and when it's projected to be open. I know right now target occupancy is November 2026, and there's been some interesting discussion about final county council meeting and first county council meeting, but that seems like a lifetime away right now. So we'll keep updates on that as we get closer to it. But obviously wanted to point that out as its construction has started and it's in the ground. And then we'd be remiss if we didn't point out that this is the 225th anniversary of Middlesex County. And we kick off every council meeting with an interesting fact to celebrate the history of Middlesex County. We've got some fancy warden coloring papers, and we're doing a warden for a day contest. So when we're out and about, we do like to just give that a shout out for a second, where high school students will have an opportunity to give a little bit of what they think about what being a member of Middlesex County Council is, and then get a bit of time to spend with the warden and county council. So Ledge Services has spun that up, and I think it's a fascinating little program they've done. Most importantly, though, when we come out and you allow us to come here, and we appreciate that for our dog and pony show, that it gives us an opportunity to sit in front of all of council and go back and forth. If there's some takeaways you'd like, question and answers, we'll try to answer them here. But if not, we'll follow up with correspondence with written responses on those. So that's it for me. Just want to say thank you again for the opportunity to be here and your time.
So Mayor, if there's any questions for us, I will say that I know Paul is comments that are made from our visits. He's putting that together to do a presentation to county council as well as to what we're hearing out in the county. So.
Okay, councilors, anybody have any questions or comments? Councilor McKinnon?
Not a question, Paul, but just a comment. The Ansi area in the former Mosa Township, the McElry Society did an extensive inventory of rare flowers and animals that exist in that. And I just wonder, before you go in and harvest, do you go to that and look and make sure that we're not destroying something that shouldn't be destroyed?
Through you, Mayor. I'm gonna be honest, I can't answer that one off the top of my head. I have to say, Mark's pretty good about checking all the boxes before we do anything, but I will follow up once we consult with staff on that one, okay?
Councilor Kingma, you're next.
Yeah, through the mayor to Paul, now that you're the CAO, is there a GM of strategic initiatives anymore?
Through you, Mayor. At this point in time, there hasn't been. When we presented the reorganization, we'll reconsider long-term staffing implications at budget 2026 about what that looks like on a go-forward basis and where we think some of our gaps are. We are doing deeper dives into a few of our service areas. County Council just approved a master plan and a third-party assessment for the lodge, and we're going to do that with a couple of our other service areas. So we didn't want to just jump back in and fill that right away. We want to ensure that we're being responsive administratively to council, local municipalities, and interested parties before we just backfill that.
If I could add one thing to that, Mayor, I know that our CAO is really hoping to reinvigorate those CAO conversations with the county CAO involved in that as well. And I think that has been missing if I'm looking at your CAO, for everyone to be there and be a part of that. So we're keeping up to it at that side too.
Yeah, so, and I haven't, apologies to you, Mayor Clark. I haven't had the opportunity to speak with the warden on this, but yeah, CO Calvert has been great and has invited us to join, and we do appreciate that and look forward to that relationship as it go forward. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and if I may add, this for the benefit of everyone around the table here, I've already sat down with Paul for about 2.5 or 3 hours and went through with how would we say, looking for opportunities for areas to improve, and I know that I think you've met with each of the CAOs and each of the respective mayors in Middlesex County. So I think it's a great time because we're not just saying we always did it this way, so why do we? Because we did. No, we're saying no, do a deep dive. What can we do better, and what can we deliver better? And I think you've hit the ground running and we're seeing change almost immediately. So I really appreciate that. Okay, Councillor Kingma, something further?
Yeah, this is a real heavy topic, through the mayor. Is there going to be an economic development corporation?
Through you, Mayor Clark, I'm obviously that's a decision of county council. There has been a wholesome study and about 2 years of internal assessment on that. I'm fairly confident that when the county agenda gets posted on Wednesday afternoon or Thursday, there'll be a report on economic development delivery model. And it will provide some considerations for county council in regards to internal versus economic development corporation, staffing complement, and a way forward where we can focus on KPIs and outcomes versus what that department looks like. I wouldn't want to say one way or another what county council will decide, but I feel like from this meeting next week, there's a good opportunity. We'll move forward with some certainty on that.
That's very good. It seems like a crowded field. Everyone is tinkering with economic development. So I was wondering if we were going to get into that game and how can we be unique? Are we going to have more foreign direct investment? Is that going to be our focus if that ever gets off the ground?
Well, I guess that remains to be seen. So we'll wait till we get that report at county council and then I think you're going to see some changes. That's for sure.
If
Go
I
ahead,
may
Ben.
add, Mayor, that has been a topic that's come up at every one of our meetings. And I think it will continue to come up until we formulate a plan where we're going forward on this. But you're right, it's going to get dealt with and it is coming to the next meeting. And it would be unfair to say too much before we go to county council for sure, so.
Yeah, Brian and I aren't going to say how we're going to vote, so. Anyway, all kidding aside, they're great improvements and a good conversation, so thank you. And last call for questions or comments? Okay, seeing none then, thank you, Warden Rob and Paul for taking the time to come and see us tonight. We appreciate the presentation, and I know I don't have to say this, but any counselors, the door is always open. If you have any questions for Paul or for Brian, feel free to pick up the phone and they'll be happy to answer them for you as well. Okay, that's great. Thank you. Yep. Yeah, thank you. Okay, next up is item 7 on our agenda, the consent agenda. Is there anything in there anyone would like pulled out? Councillor McKinnon?
Yes, I'd like 7K pulled out for discussion, please.
Okay. All right, Councillor Kingma?
And 7J.
Okay, thank you. So can I have a motion to accept and file 7A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and I? Moved by Councillor Campbell, second by Councillor Brody. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, so the next item we've pulled from there is 7J, the staff report response to June 16th, 2025, Carlos Trinidad delegation questions. Would you have questions, Councillor
Yes,
Campbell?
thank you. I read the report. It was okay. I mean, it answered the questions. So I was wondering about our relationship with the MECP. Like, do they tell us what their rationale is for issuing a permit? And do they keep in mind land use compatibility or anything like that?
The simple answer would be no, they don't. But I'll let Morgan speak a little further on it.
Through the mayor to Councillor Kingma, Mike and I have been speaking to the MECP extensively on this permit. Currently, there is no regard for local zoning through their permitting process. So when they issued the permit, it was based on the applicant's information being submitted to the MECP and then a corresponding permit being provided to the applicant for their subject property. we've asked a number of times and identified a number of issues with the process, to which we sent a letter through the mayor to identify that there are gaps in their permitting process. In speaking with the MUCP local officer, he mentioned that the province is considering moving other types of environmental approvals under the same process, which is why we responded with a letter to identify that there really needs to be more regard to local zoning, some kind of compliance or fact check that the property is zoned for its requested purpose.
So just, I might add, and so we're still working through some of that, and I've had conversations with MPP Steve Pinsino on that, and he was copied in on that letter as well. So that's something it's a work in progress. Okay, if anything further on that one? Seeing none then, could we jump down to the next one? Aired Bear List, the closed meeting investigation report, Adelaide Metcalfe, September 9th, 2025. And your question, Councillor McKinnon.
Through you, Mayor Clark, to Johnny, I believe. Johnny, is there a cost related to that inquiry?
Through Mayor Clark to Councilor McKinnon. I'll actually turn it over to Mike because he was dealing with that.
Sorry.
Through the mayor to Councillor McKinnon. We haven't even received a formal invoice. I did ask in anticipation of this meeting how much this file cost, and it was approximately $5,800.
Okay. The previous integrity commissioner was very reasonable in cost. One question I had to him, and there was no cost to it at all. So.
Through
This came from a public person, so like they have to, like, that's a very comprehensive report, and I'm not defending the price because I'm shocked by it myself. But they have to do a fulsome report. They can't just have a telephone one-off, like for guidance questions. And if Mike, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, through the mayor to Councillor McKinnon. Morgan and I have discussed the charge and how much it is. And behind the scenes, we'll look for different options in that regard. I would say that Airs Bear List is the gold standard in the province, and I would say about approximately 50% of municipalities do use Aired Bear List. So it's something we consider. I would advise it's something we could look, before the next term of council, which is coming soon, or let that council decide. It's great service, but it is expensive.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions on that item? Councillor Brody?
I think just a comment. So an overview of this whole report was council did everything that they were supposed to do, did everything right. And this $5,800 is just basically going to cost the tax base the money that is getting charged, correct? Thank you.
Any other comments? Seeing none, then could I have a motion to receive and file items 7J and 7K? Moved by Councillor McKinnon, second by Councillor Kingma. All in favor, and that's carried. Okay, next up is our correspondence. We have a request to support a resolution from the municipality of West Nipissing, wanting a moratorium on aerial spraying. We have a request to support a resolution from the town of Goderich, Standing Senate Committee on Agriculture and Forestry report. We have a request to support a resolution from the Township of Armagh regarding governance of family health teams. And we have a request to support a resolution from the Township of West Lincoln regarding human trafficking prevention. Any appetite to support any of those? Seeing none, then we have a recommendation that council receive and file correspondence items 8A through 8D. Moved by Counselor Kingma, second by Counselor Brody. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, next up are our staff reports. This first one is we'll have our treasurer, Johnny Pereira, present, and it's regarding development charges for farm labor residences. And it's not specific to one. When it was first brought to our attention, it was one property, but we felt that we wanted a fulsome report, not specific to that, but how it could be applied or what it would look like across our municipality, not on a one-off basis. So with that bit of background, I'll turn it over to you now, Johnny.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. Through to council. This is a fairly lengthy report. I'll try to kind of touch on the major pieces and summarize. So back on July 21st, council did receive correspondence from Advent Boilers regarding development charges applied to their building permit for farm labor residents, and requested that council reconsider these charges, citing the unique nature of the housing for migrant workers. So during that same meeting, council did direct staff to prepare today's council report outlining available options, financial impacts, refund options, and potential restrictions on future use if an amendment was granted. So effective on January 1st, DC charges were effect for both Adelaide Metcalfe and now Middlesex County, which both have their own bylaw that needs to be adhered to. So for the Middlesex County DCs, decisions related to exemptions are actually dealt with at the county level and is not a decision at the lower tier. The township's responsibility is limited to the collection of DCs in accordance with the DC bylaw itself. So any changes to those exemptions would have to be dealt with at county council. So in regard to the farm labor residents, the township's DC bylaw does outline 3 discretionary exemptions for DCs, which none of them actually allow for farm labor residents, as outlined in the report there. The report also outlines the exemptions and the corresponding definitions. Staff actually reached out to Watson's as well, who is the consulting firm that completed the DC background study and the bylaw, to confirm the building department's interpretation that DCs should apply to the farm labor residents, which they did confirm that DCs would. So at the request of council, staff did work with Watson and Associates to outline a number of options available for council's consideration. The first being the DC bylaw amendment. Due to recent provincial legislation changes, it did give municipalities the ability to amend the DC bylaw specifically for reducing and exempting more DCs instead of going through the costly DC background process. The amendment could be made to recognize a farm labor residence within the bylaw. So to ensure it remains clear and defensible in the bylaw itself, staff would recommend consulting or utilizing our consultant, Watson and Associates, to undertake this update to ensure the definitions are added, everything is clear and defensible, as they would be the ones supporting the township if it is challenged by any party. The cost estimate to do this was about $2,000 to $3,000, and we'd be complete in 1 to 2 months. This cost would need to be borne by the general tax base, and it's not budgeted within the 2025 budget. A second option is a grant relief program, similar to what was presented earlier by the county. It's through implementing a grant relief or an application based under the township's community improvement plan, and that would assist with DC cost recovery. This approach would not require any amendments to the DC bylaw, and all existing exemptions and rates would remain unchanged. Updating the CIP program would likely only be recommended to council if it's looking to review and expand other programs or tools, as a CIP amendment would not be efficient solely for this purpose due to the time and resources required. The cost for that 2023 CIP program was just shy of $8,000. Other municipalities, the third option is the agricultural or rural specific development charge. Many municipalities in the county have implemented a special rural specific DC charge. These communities typically have a separate urban rate in settlement areas that operate water and wastewater systems, which is why they have a lower rate in those communities. So although the township does have some areas with water and wastewater, these services were deliberately excluded from the township's DC bylaw, as the appropriate financial plans would need to be completed with the associated rate studies in the future. Until such time, the rural and urban distinction used in other municipalities wouldn't apply at this time. Council could consider a special agricultural rate, though, for farm-related development. So a special rate like this could acknowledge the agricultural growth that still does have impacts, such as for fire services and some road infrastructure. But the rate would differ from those traditional residential or commercial industrial development charges. So introducing a specific agricultural rate couldn't be achieved through an amendment. A full DC background study would have to be completed. And the estimated cost for that would be about $33,000, and that was based on the 2022 implementation cost. The final option is just maintaining the DC bylaw as it is and continuing to apply DCs for any other future farm labor residents. There would be no further action from council, and no additional costs would be required for that. One of the other questions from council was restrictions on future use. So aside from additional building permits, if ever applicable in the future, there were conditions outlined from a rezoning perspective in Ashley's planning report earlier. The only way we can really control this property, or any properties for that matter, is by entering into an agreement with the property owner to restrict its use. And this type of agreement could be administratively difficult to monitor and enforce over time, and it would require the willingness of the property owner to entertain this agreement as well. In addition, it does reflect council's policy direction at this time, and future councils could revisit or amend this approach if their priorities do change. In addition, staff also looked at neighboring municipalities in the county as well. So a full review of all DC bylaws from every municipality that had them in effect in 2025. So there is a schedule attached to the report outlining that. So based on staff's review of all their statutory exemptions and the corresponding definitions for those exemptions, staff's interpretation is that every municipality in the county would not be exempting farm labor residences, and DCs would be applicable for them all. If council were to amend the existing DC bylaw, refunds would be required for any applicable DC charges based on the retroactive date that council chooses. Although that would just be Adelaide Metcalfe's portion, county DCs would still be applicable. So just touching on granting exemptions, it does reduce the overall revenues into the township for the DC reserve fund for those growth related projects. Under the Development Charge Act, it is important to note that any shortfall resulting from an exemption cannot be recovered through higher charges on other development, which means any shortfalls must be funded through other municipal revenues, such as the general tax base. The recommendation is to receive the report. There is no recommended option. It is for council's discussion and consideration this evening, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Johnny. It's a good thing we all read it before we came, because it's a lot of information, so it's nice that you highlighted it again for us. Are there any questions for Johnny? Councilor Brody.
Through to Johnny. So I got more comments than questions, I'd say. I don't think we need to do another whole study at $33,000. I don't like that idea. Either a bylaw amendment or a grant relief. I think the charges that are going against this one property is excessive. There's no water. It's gravel. There's no sewer. The migrant workers might not even have a license to drive on these roads. This is totally for workers. I think the number is insane myself. But I don't want to have a cost of doing a whole study at 33,000 to the township either. I don't like this. I don't like it. I don't like it. So I think there should be some flexibility here or some relief for this. I don't know if you have to actually make a bylaw amendment. That's not my expertise level, but I think there's something that needs to be done with this one, and maybe a few like this may be a one-off. We don't know, but if he had it built 3 months prior, he wouldn't have any of this. So, right? That's well, not much more.
As he went, well, he just got the permit, did he not?
Yeah, and this started
Last year.
Yeah,
Like
it
a year
was
ago.
pretty close.
No, but was it not January 2024?
That's correct.
Yeah.
So the date on the report just indicated that. So that's when Middlesex counties and Adelaide Metcalfe's DC charges were applicable. Adelaide Metcalfe did have their DCs in effect last year as well.
Councillor Kingma.
Thank you. I have comments too, through the mayor. I am willing to do option one. I think something needs to be done, so I would like Watson and Associates to study the matter, come up with an airtight definition of a agricultural worker residence. And maybe they can even propose what kind of reduction. I don't believe there should be an exemption, but a reduction, and how we can collect that reduced amount. I think there's a number of different ways that we can be generous of spirit when it comes to these types of developments.
I was going to say something, but I'll refrain right now. Anybody else have any comments or questions? I know what I was going to say. I lost my thought. So that's not in our budget for this year, so it would have to be deferred until the new year unless you're asking for, you're gonna find that money from somewhere. And otherwise it's gonna have to wait till, because it's not something that's been budgeted for. It's not in a long-term plan at this point. Do you want to speak further on that, Johnny?
Sure. Just on that point, if this is something that council does want to look at, staff can revisit the budget for opportunities and cost savings. And we can bring that back to council if it is an option in 2025.
I'd also be interested, and maybe if they were still sitting here, Paul could answer this question, but I'd be interested to know that this conversation has happened around other council tables, and everybody's looking around at each other in each municipality saying, well, there's no exemptions, there's no exemptions. So that may be the conversation, and is this a topic that perhaps the county should be looking at? It's just an idea. Councillor McKinnon?
And further to your comment, Mayor Sue, it might be something that the municipalities can go to impact and look at whether it's full-time, like 12 months of the year, or is it 3 months of the year that this is being used for labor, and look at getting it classified or reclassified as farm land.
It would be this one.
Johnny?
Would be a 12.
Yeah, through the mayor to Councilor McKinnon. Great question. And I did briefly speak on that in the report. So I did reach out to MPAC, as there were a couple municipalities that in their definition did reference the tax class that would be associated with the farm worker residents. In those discussions, it would sometimes depend on if it's a seasonal or if that structure was being built to handle all seasons. So if there was HVAC units in there and whatnot, typically, MPAC did say if there was HVAC units and it could handle housing for a full year, it would be taxed at the residential class. But if it was a seasonal type worker residence, it would be more likely that it would be a farm type residence.
Okay, Councillor Brody.
Through Sue, I like Garrett's comment. I like his idea about doing number one. It's a lower cost to at least check it out. I think the comment of if it's in this year's budget, you know, we're already gonna be only 3 months left of the next year, so I don't think that's a problem. If it has to get kicked into the next year's budget, that's a non-issue in my mind, right? Yeah, so.
Councillor Campbell?
Through you, I have a rookie question, so I don't even know who this is for. Because in the bylaw amendment, what we're asking here is that basically to create that this is a non-residential period, so there is no middle ground necessarily that says there's maybe some charge but not a lot? Or does that fall under the rural specific DC charge option that we I certainly wouldn't support? So it's one of those cases of basically what are we asking here? Is it a case of that this would be a non-residential and we'd waive that charge completely with a amendment?
I'll let Johnny answer that, but I think MPAC is dictating some of this too, from what you're saying. But you can speak.
Yeah, I'll just pick right through the mayor to Councillor Campbell. So in this particular case, in the DC bylaw, there are 3 discretionary exemptions. So what option 1 is looking at is creating a 4th exemption specifically for this. And part of that review from the consultant would be to revisit the language in that report to make sure it's clean and consistent for the current exemptions for farm, but in addition to exempting the farm labor residents. And on the MPAC piece there, that was related more to a couple municipalities. DC bylaws spoke to MPAC specifically, that they would exempt it if MPAC deems it as a farm tax class. If MPAC deems it as a residential tax class, DCs would apply over there. So that was my interpretation of their DC bylaw. So I wanted to reach out to MPAC just so I could confidently speak to council this evening, saying that if it was a all season farm labor residence, that it would be DC eligible throughout the whole county. So,
Councillor Brody.
I can buy into DC eligible, but I think we need to find it as a farm labor house where it's not the full DC charge as if it was on a road with water, sewer, pavement, edge of town. Like this is just not the same. This isn't gonna be a rented. The way these charges are going against this is they're looking at the exact same if somebody was building a fourplex and renting it out and probably be for sale again, and maybe another developer will buy it and build onto it. This is not the case. So that in my mind is the reason, like they're getting billed the same, they're getting painted with that same brush. And where I like that idea of going back and looking at if we can have at least get it down on a farm exemption rate.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Kingma's earlier comments that they should pay DCs, but we almost should have a special category for this, but it sounds like that doesn't exist out there and maybe we need to be the leaders here. I don't know. Johnny?
so the other option is instead of a full exemption, there could be a percentage type of exemption. So it doesn't have to be 100%, understanding that there's partial use. So that could be an avenue we could explore with the consultants to see what that looks like, knowing that going through a full DC background study is very costly to define an ag rate, but in the interim, possibly a percentage reduction could be an option. But if council chooses, we could work with the consultants. They would define a definition that is acceptable to council and provide some options as far as full or specific percentage that would be palatable to council. So Watson's would present that to council, and there could be discussion on that and any changes that council would like to see, and take that away.
So Johnny, but pardon me, but my computer died. What is the cost that we would be talking there? 2 to 3.
2 to
Okay.
3,000 for the
Okay.
number one, yeah.
Okay, Councillor Kingma?
Through the mayor to council, I motion that we refer this option 1 to the budget committee, 2026.
Seconded by Councillor McKinnon. Any further discussion? Councillor Brody?
Yeah, do we have to put in there, that we are gonna go to the Swatsons and Associates then, and like as part of your motion, basically? Yeah.
Essential.
Okay.
Only thing I'd like to add is I am going to take it upon myself to speak to the other mayors around the horseshoe at my earliest time that I'll be meeting with them. Because I would like to know if these are struggles that they're working with as well, that maybe we can have a unified decision across the county, and then these conversations are a lot easier, because I can't believe we're the only municipality that is being but has this challenge. And wouldn't it be a nice thing if we continue to have these sorts of challenges, because the ag business is growing and they need help? Like, that's a good news story. So I'll undertake to do that. Okay, so the vote, all in favor? And that's carried. Okay, the next thing up is Johnny again, a staff report regarding 2025 fees and charges bylaw update, and specifically a fire department standby fee, which I'm happy to see.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. Through to council. So from time to time, amendments to the township's fees and charges bylaw are recommended at council mid-year. These are amendments are typically identified through the review of operational spending, department needs, and emerging cost recovery options to ensure the appropriate revenue streams are in place. The proposed update incorporates a standby charge for the fire department. So the standby charge is a fee charged when a business or special event requires the fire department and its firefighters to be present and ready to respond to a potential incident. The fee ensures that costs are being recovered by the company requesting assistance instead of the general tax base. The township does not anticipate much revenue from this charge, but provides the ability to recover costs when situations do arise. The recommendation is to approve the fees and charges amending bylaw. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Johnny? Councillor Kingma?
Through the mayor, I know we wouldn't receive a standby charge too often, but should we be prepared to have a standby agreement available so that, if we're attending a civil event or whatever, that everyone participating has a expectation of how it should proceed?
I'm gonna comment, just to give you some background here, because of our fire team responds predominantly to 402 accidents. There was, and everybody in the office knows I'm all about user pay and cost recovery. So that's how this kind of came to light. And when you have like a hazmat thing go wrong on the 402 and they want standby people there for 10, 20 hours, we're not recovering our costs. So that's what initiated this. And so we're not waiting for, oh, we do this twice a year. No, when we find a hole, we want to fill it. So that's where this came from. So did you want to speak to his question, or you got your hand up, Morgan?
Yeah, real quick, I think through the mayor to Councillor Kingma, that's a good response because quite often these things will be a quick phone call. Hey, we need your assistance on standby, recover the costs. There may be times during a fireworks event, for example, where a fire may be available or may be required to be available, where I can see some form of expectation being set between both parties would be appropriate. Under the Fire Prevention and Protection Act, and I'm not trying to get into the chief's world too much here, but we're required to have an establishing and regulatory bylaw that defines the services and their service levels. And so any agreement that we really have would be, this is what we're capable of doing, and this is what you're going to pay for it. So through the fees and charges, we now have the authority, once council approves this, to issue that cost anyway for that service. So I'd say what I could do is take it back to our management group with the fire chief at that table and have that discussion around whether it will be appropriate or whether or not we already have the tools available to establish that expectation of standby.
Councillor Kingma?
Yes, thank you through the mayor to Morgan. I'm just playing out a scenario. The fire department is on standby. There's a 911 emergency. I think the event promoter should know that that is going to happen or could happen, and we shouldn't be, knocked for that. So I just wondered if we should have something on paper saying that in the event of whatever, we might not be available.
Yeah, that's good impact. Going back to the example I used, that was deemed an emergency, and they were just standing there in the event that something ignited or something went wrong. So it was deemed to still be an emergency. So I think if had they gotten a 911 call that day, we didn't have all our resources deployed to the 402. It's just, I believe, one truck or two, maybe. They was still. But having said that, we might have had to pull from that and leave one and pull that other one if it was a large barn fire, let's say, something like that, then.
We should make it abundantly clear that there's a potential that our services will be cut short.
Sure.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
through the mayor to Councillor Kingma, absolutely set the expectation. We'd also have to work with dispatch as well to just let them know that we've parked one of our apparatuses so that maybe they would have to bring in a mutual aid type of scenario. So you're right, there's some inner workings there that we'd have to work through, but I'd really like to talk to the fire chief about how they triage certain calls or prioritize certain calls over others before I kind of put my foot in my mouth, for example.
Yeah, I think communication's key, so that would have to factor in. Okay, so any more questions or comments on that? So seeing none, we are just talking about the fees and the charges tonight, not the delivery or the execution. So we have a recommendation that council approve the fees and changes amending bylaw as it relates to this item. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor McKinnon, second by Councillor Campbell, all in favor, and that's carried. Okay, at this time, it is 8:28. We will go into closed session. We have a recommendation that council adjourn to closed session pursuant to section 2392 of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended to discuss the following matters: litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, specifically the servicing agreement between Adelaide Metcalfe and Strathroy Caradoc. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor McKinnon, second by Councillor Brody, all in favor, and that's carried.